Hi, I'm Nancy L.T. Hamilton, and I am in Chimera's jewelry studio now, and I'm going to show you how to use our torches safely and wisely. We all would appreciate that. So we're going to start with our double hose torch down here. This, as you can see, has a splitter on it, which sends one torch in one direction and one in another. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because there's a different shut-off and turn-on procedure for this. With all the torches, the first thing that you want to do before you turn this on is to make sure that the gas is turned off, which is a right-hand turn, and you want to make sure that the regulator is fully open and loose, like that, so it should move easily. You also want to make sure that these are shut. Don't forget to check to make sure that the torch handle itself is turned off. And that's with the, once again, the right-hand turn. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Once everything is, you're guaranteed it's shut off, now we're going to turn things on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the gas on, and we're going to see that reflected here in this dial, the first dial on the right. We don't want to turn it far, maybe a quarter of a turn. And this gauge is showing us how much gas is actually left inside the tank. This gauge we haven't moved yet because that's controlled by the regulator. At this point, when this is turned on, all the gas is only right here in this section of the apparatus. Now we want to send the gas to this regulator and down into these handles. So what we're going to do is we're going to start turning this slowly, and it'll start getting a little tighter. You'll feel it under your hand, and you want to go slowly because this gauge takes a minute or a second or two to come up on the pressure. Sometimes you have to hold it a little longer. Now, there's an area here that's red. It's red for a reason. If you go past 15 psi up into 18 psi, there's a great chance that this can blow up. So it's incredibly important that you never ever put the torch pressure up into these areas. A lot of times I just stop at 10 psi. It makes me feel a little safer. Then what you want to do is, if you're opening it up for two people to use these torches, or you have two different size torch tips on the tank that you want to use, you want to open up these by turning them to the left. And you'll see that the pressure changes here because you've now put some of the gas into the line and it's removed it from the regulator itself. Once you have your gas into the regulator, your regulator set at, let's say, 10 psi, then it's time to light the torch, and that's, you want to make sure that you have the vent on, which is over here. We're not going to put it on now for the videos because you wouldn't be able to hear a dang thing I say. But generally, you can put it on low for basic soldering, but if you're doing something that creates a lot of smoke, you'll want to hit it on the high level. And we have different kinds of instruments to light the torch. This is a hand striker that has a flint that creates a spark. And the cup design here is designed for a reason. What this cup does is it holds the gas in here, so when you light this, turning this to the left, this cup will fill with a little gas. Give it a second. Maybe turn the gas up a little more. And then the torch will eventually light. There we go. But that's what the cup is for, is to hold some gas. Now that's, we call it the old-fashioned way. Actually, this is what I use, is an electronic lighter striker. Same thing, you've got your gas on, you want to come in at an angle and tap this little bar down here. This creates a spark within here, and this little cave thing that's here holds that gas so that it has something to ignite that spark. On the second torch that we have at Chimera, it's a single torch, so it's slightly different, only in that you're not going to have the splitter attached to it. So it's a little easier and less work. You might want to use it if you're in here by yourself. So come on down. With this tank, and as with the other one, you want to make sure, always check first to make sure that everything is shut off. So I'm going to turn this to the right to make sure it's tight. The regulator is going to be turned to the left to make sure that the regulator is all open, and then you want to make sure your torch is shut by turning to the right. Once you've checked that everything's off, you have nothing showing up on your gauges, you can start the opening process. So I'm turning to the left on the gas. This is sending gas into this particular part of the regulator, and we can see that this has that amount of gas in it. By the way, if this is on 0 after opening the gas, do not use it. That means that it's out of gas, and it may run, but what will happen is the debris that's in the bottom of this tank will come up and can clog the regulator. So if it's very low, notify someone at Chimera so that we can replace these tanks. Anyway, back to opening. We've got it open. You can see the gas. Now we need to send the gas from here over to here, and we do that by tightening down on the regulator. Once again, we're going to go slowly, and you'll start to see the dials move. Sometimes it takes a second or two for it to go up, and I'm going to try to stop it around 10 psi. Once again, this tank, we don't want to see it beyond 15 psi. Explosive hazard at that point. And now the torch is ready to light. This is a really large tip that you might use for casting, melting metal. But once again, it's to turn the torch on to the left, tap the silver switch, and you're ready to go. You're going to want to try different tips. If you're soldering something very tiny, you're going to want to use a smaller orifice. This is probably what most people will use, a medium size, and this is a number 1, 0-1, whereas this is an 80-8, 3. Anyway, this is a big tip. So what we do to change is we turn this to the right, and then once it's loose, you pull. There's an O-ring around here that creates some resistance and keeps the gas from leaking out. So that's why you have to give it a little effort. And then this one pops on. You push down until it's seated on there, and then tighten it down. If you can't tighten this down, you haven't pushed it far enough in. And don't ever light it when it's not fully engaged. You also want to think about having the torch tip in what direction it's facing. You could put it on like this, but it's going to be awkward to turn it on and off. You're going to have to keep flipping your arm around. So think about where you position the tip of the torch. And once again, it's turn on and blammo. So at the end of the day, especially if you're the last person in here using the torch, you want to make sure that this torch is shut off and that everything is drained out of the system. What happens is if you don't drain the gas out, it puts pressure on the regulators, it puts pressure on these hoses, and there can be leaks or other problems that can occur. Everything you do affects the safety of everybody else here. Good enough. So now what we want to do is don't forget to turn the torch off for the next person when they come in, so when they turn on the torch, the gas isn't flying out. If you remember from the prior description, that means the gas isn't no longer coming up through here, it's now running into this area still. So we have to get all the gas out of here, and what do we have to do? Drain the hose. Turn it on, let it flow. And this is going to be a little quicker because the tip is not as small as with the other one. sometimes you'll hear a little backfire pop. That's normal. And then once again, see we're at 0 here, but we want to open this baffle. So we're going to turn that to the left until it's loose. It should be easy to move with your finger just like that. And so this torch is now done and ready for the next person who comes in here. So, you know, usually when you're soldering, you've got your quench ball here, and you've got your flux, and you've got your solder, and your brushes, and hopefully no paper in this area. At the end of the day, it's truly and honestly appreciated if you clean up after yourselves. Take your quench bowls and dump them and rinse them. Put the solder away. Stick your flux back up here on the counter. Take your strikers and put those away, and that way when you come in the morning or someone else comes in the morning, it's going to be clean and nice, and you're going to be like, I can create here, I'm happy. So anyway, welcome to Chimera's soldering area, and be safe and have a good time.